हम आपको ले चलते हैं गर्म समुद्री लहरों के बीच, जहां हर लहर के पीछे एक कहानी छुपी है। तो आज हम बात करेंगे वार्म करंट्स के बारे में, टाइप ऑफ ओशनिक करंट्स में। तो चलिए बिना किसी देरी के स्टार्ट करते हैं वार्म करंट्स। पहले उसकी डेफिनेशन देख लेते हैं वार्म करंट्स की, कि वार्म करंट्स आर दोज दैट ट्रेवल फ्रॉम इक्वेटर टू पोल्स and therefore warmer than the surrounding water. Okay, whereas cold ocean currents are substantially quantities of cold water moving towards from equator from a high altitude to the low height. Okay, they absorb heat from the tropics and chill air above them. A oceanic current is basically a continuous and coordinated movement of the ocean water caused by a variety of forces acting on water, wind, and correlates effects, breaking waves, temperature, and salinity differences. In the low and medium altitudes, these currents are frequently seen on east coast of the continents, true in both hemispheres. Okay, they are nevertheless found on the west coast of the continent at high altitude in the northern hemisphere. If we see the features of the oceanic currents, then in the northern hemisphere, currents flow in clockwise direction, okay, in clockwise direction, and while in the southern hemisphere they flow in the anti-clockwise. Okay, the northern part of the Indian Ocean, however, is an exception to the above mentioned rule, that is clockwise and anti-clockwise, as the current in this region shift direction in response to the seasonal change in the monsoon winds direction, and the cold currents flow in the direction of warm oceans and vice versa. The directions and the speed of oceans current are also influenced by shoreline. Now the question arises, what causes ocean flows? Then the flat strain angle powers and Coriolis powers and frictional powers are the significant powers that region and influence sea flows. Now we see important warm currents. First is north equatorial current. This north equatorial current, here is north equatorial current. Okay, and this location is Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. This is Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. Okay, this is north equatorial. And if we see the features, the northern equatorial currents is the wind driven current, okay, that flows westward near the equator, although it means found in other seas. These are westward, okay. And North Atlantic and Pacific north equatorial currents are located between 5 degree and 20 degree north altitudes, whereas the Indian Ocean north equatorial currents is near the equator. It stretches from sea surface to the depth of 400 meters in western Pacific. Now next is Kuroshio currents. This is in Pacific Ocean, okay, located in the Pacific Ocean, and this are also called as Japan currents or black currents, okay. Japan currents and the black currents are two names for this west border currents. Kuroshio is a Japanese word that means black stream. On the west end of the North Pacific Ocean basin, the Kuroshio current is a warm north flowing current. This current transfers warm equatorial water poleward similar to the Gulf Stream in the North Atlantic and forms the western limb of the North Pacific subtropical gyre. And the very important feature of the Kuroshio current has a significant influence on fertilizer and sediments movement, major Pacific storm courses, regional climate, and Pacific mode water formation. Now, the another current is North Pacific current. Okay, North Pacific current is in the Pacific Ocean, and this current is a slow warm water current that runs west to the east. Okay, that is west to the east, and this is between the 30 to 50 degree 30 to 50 degree north in the Pacific Ocean. 50 degree, okay. The current forms southern and northern part of the North Pacific subpolar gyre, and the North Pacific current is generated by Kuroshio current. This is just a minute. This here it is showing that it is generated by Kuroshio in North Pacific. which runs north of Japan coast, and Oyashio Current, which runs south and counter clockwise along the western North Pacific Ocean. Here we can see Oyashio Current, okay, which runs south and counterclockwise along the western North Pacific Ocean. Okay. Now we see next Alaskan currents. Here is the Alaskan currents. Okay, this is also in the North Pacific Ocean, and the California and Alaskan currents are propelled by the North Pacific currents. Okay, it empties into the Alaskan stream, which originates on Kodian Island. Yes, here is Kodian Island, and flows southwest along Alaska Peninsula. The Alaskan streams meet up the North Pacific current to complete the round of the Alaskan gyre. Now, next is counter equatorial currents. The, these are the currents located in Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and the Indian Ocean. Okay, and it is eastward flowing. The wind-driven currents extended to depth of 100 to 150 meters. These streams run from west to east, okay, west to east, and between the north equatorial current and the south equatorial current. Okay, these are the equatorial counter currents flows between north equatorial and the south equatorial in the Atlantic, Indian, and the Pacific basins. Now see the south equatorial currents. These are the south equatorial. Here is south equatorial currents. Okay, in Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and the Indian Ocean. And these currents in the Pacific, Atlantic, and the Indian Ocean and the south equatorial current travel east to west between equator and 20 degrees south. 20-degree south. In the Pacific and Atlantic, it reaches 5-degree north. And the western limb of the large-scale subtropical gyre is the south equatorial current, a complicated mechanism combining west boundary currents, strengthening the tropical trade winds driven these gyres. Now, in the next East Australian currents, these are the East Australian currents. Southwestern Pacific Ocean is the location of this current, and the East Australian current is a warm and southward, and boundary current formed from south equatorial current. This is formed by south equatorial current crossing the Coral Sea and reaching Australian east coast. The south equatorial current splits around 15 degrees south near the Australian coast, becoming the East Australian current. It is the greatest ocean current near the Australia. Greatest. Okay. Now next, Florida current. Florida current is located in South Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. This current is caused by the rotation of Earth pushing water from Atlantic into the Caribbean Sea, which exerts a greater force at the equator. The water build up along Central American coast and the travel north into the Gulf of Mexico via the Yucatan Channel. The water in the Gulf is heated and forced out through the Florida Straits, which runs between the Florida Keys and Cuba and flows northward along the US East Coast. Next is the Gulf Stream. It is located in the North Atlantic Ocean, and the Gulf Stream is the powerful ocean stream that transports warm water from the Gulf of Mexico to the Atlantic. It runs the length of the United States and Canada's eastern coast. The Gulf Stream is powerful ocean stream that transports warm water from Gulf of Mexico to the Atlantic. And now Norwegian current. This is North Sea Atlantic Ocean and the Barents Sea Arctic Ocean. And the characteristics of these Norwegian current is one of the two significant Arctic inflows. It may be found at Shetland, north of Scotland, and in the eastern North Sea at depth of up to the 100 meters. It ultimately reaches the Barents Sea, a large Arctic sea, after passing through the opening. And next, Erminanger. This is the North Atlantic Ocean is the location of this current, and the Erminanger current is the westward moving North Atlantic Ocean current that originates off Iceland's southward coast. Okay, this is the current, and it made up of warm saline water from the eastern North Atlantic, which are fed by the North Atlantic drift. This North Atlantic subpolar gyre includes the Erminger current. Now next is the Antilles current. This is located in North Atlantic Ocean, and the characteristics of these are that is a warm water surface ocean movement that flows northeasterly over the Iceland chain that separates the Caribbean and Atlantic oceans. The current is caused by the movement of Atlantic North Equatorial Current. This current completes the Atlantic Ocean's clockwise cycle or convection, that is North Atlantic gyre. And next we move to Brazilian current. Brazilian current, these in South Atlantic Ocean, here Brazilian current, and this is the section of the South equatorial stream has diverted away from where it joins the South American continents, causing this current. And the Brazil current begins around Cabo Tisorago and Brazil at about uh, 10 to 15 degrees south, where South equatorial current separates. Okay, and next is Mozambique current, located in Indian Ocean. And Mozambique current is warm surface water current in the Indian Ocean that flows south along the African east coast in Mozambique Channel between Mozambique and the island of Madagascar. Now question arises: what is difference between the warm currents and the cold currents? So we differentiate that warm water currents and cold currents are two type of oceanic currents that differ in temperature, whereas cold currents are oceanic currents that move from polar region towards the equator and are cooler than the surrounding water. Then warm currents are those that travel from equator to the poles and therefore warmer than the surrounding water. But whereas warm and cold currents have only a few degree of temperature difference, not more than. Water currents can be found on the east coast of the continents in the low and medium latitude of both the hemisphere. They can be found on the west coast of continents at a high latitude in the northern hemisphere, whereas the cold current can be found on the west coast of the continent in both hemispheres at the low and middle latitude, on the east coast at the northern hemisphere at middle latitude. Okay. uh, let's now look at the previous year questions which are asked previously. This is asked in UPSC CSC prelims in 2018. Which of the following is a warm ocean current? California current, Gulf current, Labrador current, and Canary current. And the right answer is Gulf Stream, because the Gulf Stream is a warm ocean current that flows from Gulf of Mexico towards the North Atlantic Ocean. Now come to the next question, asked in 2017 UPSC CSC prelims. Which current carries warm water to coast of Western Europe? And options: Canary current, Benguela current, Gulf Stream, and Labrador current. And the correct answer, Gulf Stream, because the Gulf Stream transports warm water from the Gulf of Mexico towards Western Europe, influencing the region's climate by making it warmer and wetter than it could otherwise be. And one mains question also, that is asked in UPSC CSE mains 2016 in GS paper 1. Question is: discuss the impact of ocean currents on a global climate pattern with example of warm currents. Okay, all right, that's all that happened until today. If this helped, hit that subscribe button, like and share. Catch you in the next one. Bye bye.